Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver when she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Unfortunately, she passed on 1/1/2020, but we started TogetherForSharon.com in her memory. Today's guest is somebody who has touched my heart, become very close in a quick time because these things in a way take so much from us, but also in a positive bring us all so much closer together with individuals throughout the world who we may not ever have crossed paths. So I wanted to welcome Michael. You really just changed my life, and we're going to get into your journey, but we send our love to not just your wife, but also you and your whole family. So welcome again.
Well, it's glad to be here, George. Thank you very much. I was looking forward to today for a long time. So finally, I'm glad we've got a chance to get together.
I'm really excited. You're the only reason I go on X, which was formerly Twitter, and now I hear they might change the name back. I'm not a lover of Twitter. It's just complicated, but I do check it every single day just to see your messages and send love and support. So maybe you could kind of tell us what brought us together, and also not just the importance of Parkinson's disease awareness, but also, unfortunately, how you're battling two journeys. So we would need double time. We'll try and get it all in this short time. But again, I'm just honored to call you friend.
Well, I'm glad, and same here. It's really kind of a strange happenstance about how the whole Twitter journey even began. I was I kind of got on Twitter about 9 or 10 years ago because at one time in a future life, I used to be a television executive for HBO and the Golf Channel. And I thought that there was a space in the Twitter universe to hear about television production, sports, the creation of the Golf Channel, which I played a major role in. And so I just happened to get on there for a while and talk a little bit about my journey, about the history of TV, and it drew a few people. There was a lot of people who loved the inside the weeds of television, uh, but I didn't really take Twitter very seriously at the time. And then in 2020, I was diagnosed with stage 4 head and neck cancer. So I quickly switched to being a television former executive person full of information to deciding to chronicle my entire journey by something that I started to write every day as my cancer update, where I was just going to allow anybody who thought it might be interesting to follow along through the good, the bad, and the ugly of somebody who's fighting for their lives. And overnight, I realized that there were a lot more people on the planet who were a lot more like me than different. And it became very, very popular and a place to go, not only to track my journey, but also to be an advocate for others who might not have the voice, who might not have the information, who might not have the wherewithal. And so hopefully I've been somewhat of a beacon of light for many who are going through the same challenges that I am.
And one thing that inspires me about you is that you have a platform and you're using it and not kind of going back, being private. Obviously, not everybody can do that, but I admire it because it's almost like we're very similar, where I shared my journey with my mother, who I feel lost 15 years while she was alive and 15 years after life due to Parkinson's disease. But by voicing your opinions, your story, and your journey on there, on all social media, you're really making sure that others don't feel alone. And that's the only reason, literally, why I do this show or anything I do. I mean, there's some nights I'm up, as you know, because we're talking 24/7, trying to get awareness. And just grateful again for your work and all you do, and for sharing that. Because, like I said, I think someone might be listening now and might be going through struggles with Parkinson's or cancer or both. And we're going to just now bring a lot of well-needed awareness. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And why we're together today was, as we talked a little bit earlier, my wife, Rebecca, back in 2018, was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Actually, it took a little bit of time. It was on February 14th of 2018, as I tell the story about Rebecca's journey. We both happened to come down at the time, which happened to be one of the worst flus that either one of us had ever experienced. It bedridden both of us for almost 30 some days. And it was a huge challenge. I fortunately got out of the illness pretty unscathed, but from that virus, for some reason, my wife began to develop neurological disorders where she would begin to freeze from time to time. We didn't really consider it at Parkinson's at the particular time, only because before that there was no evidence of this being an issue whatsoever. But as days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months, and her inability to walk and to constantly freeze and to begin to have writing problems, sometimes concentration problems. It was a long journey to get to a movement neurologist. Our original primary care physician thought it might be emotional problems, depression. So, we went through a gamut of, antidepressive medications that didn't work. And finally, out of desperation, we were sent to a movement neurologist who did a very thorough examination, blood work, a movement test, and pretty much diagnosed that at that time, back in 2018, it was early stage Parkinson's. So I've been what I call her care partner, for over a little bit over 6 years now.
How's she doing now?
You know what? She has some good days. There's no doubt about it. I've seen her, like you probably did with your mother, age exponentially every day quicker than she should be. She still has issues walking, doing tiny things such as writing and yard work. She also developed something when she developed the Parkinson's, which she also developed agoraphobia, the fear of going outside. And I don't know if that was predicated based on her non-comfortable of being able to walk, of freezing, but the agoraphobia has served almost as big a challenge as the Parkinson's, because it's been a challenge to get her the necessary physical therapy and movement therapy that we would like to. She also hasn't been able to do the things that she would like to do. So I think that being confined in your own little world certainly doesn't help the mental part of the disease as well. She has great days. Her great days are not good days that you and I would consider great, but there are days when she can get around the house and she can feed the dogs and she can make the bed and she can have great conversations. But the days of her going outside on her own and playing golf with me and being athletic and getting on a plane and flying on her own, those days are probably gone. Like most Parkinson's patients, she's on a litany of medications that are designed. There are days when she feels that she's getting relief from them, and other days where not so much. So it's been a 6-year journey of learning how to manage through pharmaceuticals, through exercise, through therapy, on how best to treat somebody who has the Parkinson's disease.
Please tell her we send our love and support, and we're thinking about her. And she's a warrior, and we won't allow her to ever be alone. My mother, I remember one of the toughest days for me as caregiver was my mother was single, and she lived alone most of her life. But taking away the ability, taking her car keys away, because it was just getting to the point where it's too dangerous to herself or others to drive anymore. And I'll never forget because that's like taking away, independence, and that's what unfortunately this disease does.
And I think you're right. I think, like most diseases, and it doesn't matter if there's cancer, if it's ALS, if it's Parkinson's, it's a duly diagnosed issue where it's not just a disease. It also has to be treated from the psychological part as well, because a lot of this sends people, as my cancer did, into severe depressions, isolation, not sharing what you're feeling. And the silence of this disease is more debilitating than being able to be open and to share what's going on with you and feel safe that what you have to share is being heard. I don't claim to have answers. I've become more, and I call Rebecca my care partner, I'm not a caregiver. We're for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, till death do we part. And it's been a challenge for both of us, only because at the same time, I've gone through a litany of cancer problems and collateral damage, where she wants to support me as much as I support her. And I think sometimes that's heartbreaking when she realizes that she can't be there for me the way that she would like to, even though what she offers me is more than I can ever imagine.
Thank you for sharing that. As we I have another question, as we do that, I'm just going to share a little bit more where everyone can, reach you and also follow along, plus support you. Can you tell us a little bit about, you gave me a few tips earlier about, as a care partner. I always mix up, to me, caregiver, care partner, we're all just still in this together. So maybe
Absolutely.
maybe you could tell us a few things, like, maybe touch on, honesty with one another, how important it is, which I don't follow, taking care of yourself first, and also, all the time and financial obligations that being a caregiver, but on top of that, also going through your battle. So this is like a, double type talk that's interesting, and even makes you both even stronger and warriors in cancer and Parkinson's. So maybe could touch a little bit on that. And as you do, I'm going to just share a few things and then we can talk about them.
Yeah, I think, with any illness, as a caregiver, or what I call myself as a care partner, I'm Rebecca's partner. It's observation. It's getting the other person to feel safe enough to talk about what they're going through. I think a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this myself, when I was diagnosed with my head and neck cancer back in 2022, I was guilty for not sharing everything that was starting to happen to me with my wife, because I was fearful about scaring her. The news that I was getting at the time was not good. We were talking about stage 4 head and neck cancer, 18 months to live, 2 years. And I didn't quite uh, understand how to communicate that with somebody who was in the throes of their own uh, uh, issue as well. So, in the very beginning, when I was diagnosed, I was having more conversations with my sister and Rebecca's sister than I was with Rebecca, just not wanting to stress her out anymore, because I do know that for those with Parkinson's and any other life-threatening or debilitating progressive illness, stress is a major factor. So it took a long time for me to be able to understand how to communicate not just what she was going through, and be able to ask the correct questions that gave her a safe space to talk about, but also for me as well. And finally, the only way that her and I could move forward as a team was to have complete honesty, trust with one another, that we would do our best every single day to share all the good things that are going on in our lives, and also sharing things that are not going well with us. So it took a little bit a while to figure out that dance. It's kind of like dancing with the stars. In the very beginning, you're tripping and falling over all one another. and eventually you learn the steps and you learn the dance and you start move together as one person. And I think by me being, immersing myself into as much knowledge as I could, as being a part of every one of Rebecca's appointments, I go in with a book full of notes and questions. I'm probably a few credits short of being a neurologist by de facto at this particular time. But, to understand what somebody is going through, you have to, understand what it is that they're experiencing. So, a lot of observation I did, a lot of questioning I did, and a lot of seeking out professionals about where to get the best help for her particular issue.
I think one of the toughest things is when you have that notepad and you want answers, but unfortunately, many times we didn't get any, which was the toughest part of, Parkinson's disease, at least in my experience.
Well, George, I think that is probably the biggest frustration that I have, and I know it's one of Rebecca's biggest frustrations is, it seems to be sort of the Groundhog Day scenario. In our last 15 or 20 sessions with her neurologist, they seem to be exactly the same. How are you doing? How are the medications doing? How are you tolerating them? Touch your nose, turn your head to the, it seems to be kind of, we, in 6 years, it's just been more of a managing her medications to the point of her being able to move to her best ability than it's been any major breakthrough where we've said, oh my gosh, what a difference it is now. And so I think you're absolutely right. I think probably what we're going to experience until something major breaks through is just managing this as well as we possibly can with the basic medications that all Parkinson's patients are pretty much given. Trying to, get Rebecca to be as active and to get as much exercise for her body so that her muscles don't atrophy to where she's forced eventually to be in a wheelchair or not be able to do the things. And at the same time, making sure that my needs also are being taken care of as well. So it's a very, very delicate balancing act when both partners in the relationship are going through their own personal crises.
I think that's such important information to share. I appreciate it because there's individuals out there again who might be battling one, but to battle two is a unique situation and one that also needs to be aware. People need to be aware. So thank you. And then want to turn everyone's attention to the screen. Hopefully you can see it, but this is why I fell in love with Michael right here. They're dogs. I'm just kidding.
That's Bella, our
Oh my
rescued
God.
Chiweenie. Bella
Arrow.
is, yeah, Bella's mine, and the other one is Bambi, who is that's the one Rebecca's holding. Bambi is mommy's dog, and only after about 6 years has she become a little bit more comfortable around me because I'm the one who gives them the treats at night. But we are just huge animal lovers. We've rescued quite a few dogs. We have 2 dogs and 4 cats right now. So our house is full of little furry creatures who take up most of the bed every night.
We have a labradoodle named Bella too, a little one.
Oh,
Oh,
it's a
golden
fab.
doodle.
Yep.
Golden doodle.
Yeah, I've met more Bellas in the last few years.
But please, everyone, go to X now, not Twitter, X, and look up Michael J. Whelan, and you'll see that he's always very active. And we're going to get into more, but here you can see the incredible honesty is really the #1 word for today, not just on cancer, but also involving Parkinson's. Some would be so consumed because cancer is tough that they kind of would put the secondary one, the Parkinson's of your wife on the side, but it's really, again, unique, tough, but inspiring that you're able to cover both. One thing I do want to also bring everyone's attention, if you can go to his page here, gofundme.com/F/support dash Michael dash Whelans dash road dash to dash recovery, but I'll also add that. And if you want to kind of touch on this one, I like to use real pictures. Sometimes I know it's probably tough, even if you look at the book that I just published that you have had a chance to read. It's that picture of my mother and I is not even on the screen now. It's hard to even look at sometime because it was my wedding and that moment, the 3 minutes of the son and mother dance. I will never forget because those 3 minutes, Parkinson didn't matter and it didn't exist. And that's the one memory it can't take from us. So, I know that's why I admire you. I didn't share a lot of the last year of her life. I have video and pictures, but I didn't want it to be remembered for that. But maybe you can talk a little bit about this page because it's very important.
Well, this page was created because one of the things that a lot of illnesses do is they cause what is called financial toxicity. Our bills between Rebecca and I in the past 6 years are well over $2 to $3 million. Now, albeit a lot of that, most of that is picked up by insurance, but still the co-pays, the things that are not covered, the medications that are not covered, the amount of time that I've lost where I no longer get a paycheck, Rebecca's inability to work, it slowly tears a lot of people apart. So, a lot of people, one of the leading causes of bankruptcy here in the United States is health related issues. I never thought it would be an issue with me. 6 years ago, we had a very good life. I had a very good job. We had plans on retiring, moving back to California to take care of her mother. And between my cancer and Rebecca's Parkinson's, life threw us a little bit of a curveball. One of the things when I created this cancer page, where I went to calling it my cancer update. I can't say that I was very creative about it, but at that particular time, while there were tremendous cancer advocates online, there weren't a lot of people that were talking about the reality of what somebody goes through every single day. So as a former television executive director and writer, I thought that the best way to educate would be to chronicle every day and share my own personal journal to those of others. And a lot of times there's pictures with me with celebrities from my old television days. There's times of me playing golf, but they've slowly morphed into my experience on a daily basis of what it took to go through my personal head and neck cancer journey. So a lot of the pictures are raw, they're hard to look at. But I think with the narrative that goes along with the pictures, a lot of people out there began to relate to it, began to use me as somewhat of an advocate who was sharing my experience, strength, and hope and hard times as a way to educate others about how to ask the right questions and how to make sure that they're okay. So I'm happy to see that in the last couple of years, the way that a lot of cancer advocates are now talking about their experience looks a lot more like my page than it did years ago. And I'm happy that people are comfortable, sharing what's going on them. As it's great to be able to show the worst of times, and it's also great to be able to show that there is hope at the end of this experience for a lot of people. That we will get through this. There are an army of people. I mean, I get almost 2.5 million impressions a week. So if that's 2.5 million people that are learning about cancer, that are learning about how to be an advocate, or learning about how to ask their own questions, then I think it's been a successful experiment on Twitter or X, and and I think it's it's been very helpful to a lot of people. The sad part about it is it did cause a financial problem in our lives, only because there's a lot more money that goes out than comes in, and when you're not able to work and you're constantly having two people with serious life altering experiences, the dollars add up very, very quickly. And so I was really hesitant about asking for help for many years, but a lot of my friends who I trust explicitly said it's time to reach out, ask for some help so that you can take time to get better without the stress that most people who suffer this financial toxicity go through. So I've even posted a few of the people that I work with. One of the things that I've posted is baseball legend Brett Saberhagen, who played for the Kansas City Royals a while back, reached out to me. His organization, saveswings.org, actually is a foundation where those that are going through financial ruins to where they've gotten an eviction notice, or we're shutting off your electricity, or they can't get paid their bills, are a foundation where people can go now and apply to. And if you qualify, their organization will help pay off all of those bills so people don't end up hopeless and they can get the medical treatments that they need. Even though I'm in not in a great position, I'm not as desperate yet as some people out there. So while I rejected the help, thankfully, from Brett, I've been able to put it out there for others, and it's helped a few people.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, we don't get enough time to talk about the costs. I remember towards the end, my mother, we had to hire staff because she didn't sleep and needed a lot of help. It was costing $12,000 a month, and that's just for people to kind of babysit in a way, make sure she didn't fall. And that wasn't covered, and that didn't count, the regular living expenses, the food, the shopping, just living. So the disease isn't just taking the person's soul in a way, or their brain and their functioning, but also financially. We sometimes forget because just never have the time to talk about all these. So I really appreciate you bringing
George,
that. Yeah.
I don't think anybody ever anticipates
That's
that one day when they get to be in their 60s and they consider retirement, that you better have two savings plans. One is a 401k, and the other one is uh, oh, by the way, you've got cancer or Parkinson's or dementia. We went through the same thing with my mother-in-law, who has vascular dementia, who is now in the hospital. When we discovered that she needed help, we also realized that, like most people who don't have end of life assisted living insurance that covers these incredible expenses, and exactly what you just shared a while ago for Rebecca's mother, we could not find anybody less than $14,000 a month. So, that's $160,000 a year. We did not have that. So we ended up having to find two caregivers who would be willing to move in with Rebecca's mother and take care of her to the best of their ability, and keep our fingers crossed that her illness doesn't progress, which it has. And I think it's I've been posting a lot about the end of life assisted living, and what I hear time after time after time is those don't do it because the premiums are just so high that people can't afford the premiums for something that might happen to them 10, 20, 30 years down the road. So we just roll the dice that we're going to be okay. And sometimes we get through it. And other times it's a category 5 storm that blows through our lives.
Yeah, well, one last point I wanted to touch on, and then I want to shift a little bit about you as for our last segment of the show. But I think maybe I'm saying speaking for you, but for me, doing these shows, meeting you, becoming like family, and just trying to post 24/7, which is a detriment to my own health, which we won't talk about, helps me not just grieve, but also have hope still for others. I don't want anyone to go through what your wife is or what my mother has or our family, but by posting and reaching out and having incredible, thankfully, 99.9% of the individuals I speak to are incredible. There's always 1% we won't touch on, but thankfully you're in the 99 point. But I think, and you could tell me what you think, but I think posting like you're doing also kind of helps you in this world that we need mental health care. I know I wouldn't be here today, whether uh, as a caregiver of my mother or even an advocate today, if it wasn't for my wife and kids, but also for people like you and your wife, even though she might not know me, because when I see some, like when we met or your story, just literally feel like Mike Tyson punched me since you're in the sports field and like just wakes me up to, wow, I got to talk to you and your family. And I have to tell the world about this because it's just so important. So curious what your thoughts are on the posting and then wanting to share like I think again, it could be similar to my thinking.
Well, one of the things that I'm very open and have been for a very long time is my mental health issues. I've had bipolar disorder for as long as I can remember. And back in the 60s and 70s and the 80s and the 90s, talking about mental health issues was a taboo subject. You kept quiet. If you talked about it, you were often shunned, given a scarlet letter. So those of us who were going through these issues, for the most part, isolated and kept quiet, which just exacerbated whatever issues we were going through. So my mental health issues reached a horrible crescendo back in 1998, where at my lowest point, I, considered and attempted a suicide attempt that I botched horribly, thank goodness. But it allowed me to finally put up my hand and say, there's something wrong. I need some help. I'm not thinking clearly. And fortunately, that horrible episode was a blessing in disguise because, back in the 1990s, I realized that there were help for those of us who suffer in silence. So, the first thing that I had to do was get my mental health taken care of so that I could be helpful not only to myself, but to others as well. And I continue to openly discuss it. Once again, I was sort of one of the early pioneers who stormed the mental health beach of Normandy by talking about this. There weren't a lot of people like they are today. Today, mental health, when you talk about it, you're applauded, you're put on a pedestal, people clap for you, how brave. Back in the 90s, 80s, and 70s, when I tried to talk about it, people wanted to get away with me as far as possible. And when I took this job where I became a high level executive to creating $1 billion company, I mean, the last thing you could tell the people that were hiring you is, oh, by the way, the guy you're hiring also has bipolar disorder. That probably would never have gotten me my job. So for years, I just had to keep my struggles quiet. Today, I'm very outspoken. I talk about all of these issues. There was a beautiful story that was written pre-COVID about me. It started off as where is this creative genius, Michael Whelan, who created the Golf Channel? Why has nobody heard from him in 25 years? It's a beautiful piece by Tucker Dale Booth and myself. that's called I Built a Masterpiece and Then I Fell Apart, where I talk openly about the struggles of somebody with bipolar disorders. And I'm a firm believer that most of us who either go through this, who are caregivers or care partners, we've got to focus on the other part of the disease, and that is the mental health issue of our journey and our experience. Rebecca needs to be as sound mentally health wise as she does for her Parkinson's, in order to be able to address the issue as efficiently as we possibly can. So I'm kind of glad that I've become an advocate, not only for cancer, uh, not as much for Parkinson's as you are, but also for mental health as well.
Well, thank you, and you are just as much in Parkinson's as you're right into it with your wife, and I'll always think of you now also when I think of awareness, and you're doing an incredible job of that, so thank you. I wanted to shift just as we wrap up some more interesting and outside our tougher topics questions since you were with an incredible station. Here's a question for you. If you were asked to write a script, which you already might have been, to a movie about your life story, what would you call it?
Uh, we, we called her right now. I built a masterpiece
Uh,
and then I fell apart.
That's
The
great.
Michael J. Whelan story.
I like it. I hope I get to see it. I think we need, I think we spoke about it, but I think there's only literally one movie out there in the world with Parkinson's. There's Michael J. Fox 2 years ago on Apple TV.
Yeah,
My dream is to have your story and my mother someday on some documentary. It's just very hard. I've written about 15 media outlets, about 10 times, sent 15 letters, zero responses. So, you know me, I won't stop, but it's, I think we need, like Lifetime and all these beautiful channels need to cover Parkinson's disease, and it just seems right now a struggle. So it's maybe something we could talk about someday.
yeah. I mean, look, I'll be the first person to raise his hand and say that prior to uh, February 14th, 2018, uh, I didn't think much about Parkinson's. I had enough issues of my own that I never imagined that a 64-year-old woman who was as healthy and athletic and as had so much energy and enthusiasm could be suddenly stricken like she was shot with an arrow overnight, with something that just kind of crept into our lives in the dark of the night and attacked her with such vengeance. And I got a horrible front row seat on how this progresses. And, for a long time, George, I probably stuck my head into the sand and probably didn't put as much issue into what I was witnessing, hoping that what I was seeing wasn't true until I could no longer keep my head in the sand. And I had to educate myself, being an advocate, and also carry Rebecca and hold her through this entire journey. And going from denial into acceptance, and now what do we do? That's a very, very, very hard step to take for a lot of us, because we don't want to ever think that the one we love more than anything has got a disease that is progressive, that's going to get worse. And so when the person you love more than anything in your life is ill, it's heartbreaking. You showed a lot of my dogs, and I don't need to make I don't mean to cheapen the disease, but it's very similar when you see the dog or the cat that you love so much coming to the end of its life, suffering, and not being able to do anything you can to save something you love, because the authentic love is so powerful. I mean, that's the price we pay. The pain that I feel every single day watching Rebecca is the price that I paid and I signed up for for having the experience of authentic love. And with all the joy and with all the laughing and with all the great memories, also has periods of extreme sadness that goes along with the story as well.
Well, you kind of summed up my next question, but on the last one, final question for today. Hopefully this doesn't end today, this conversation. I always say has to continue till we find a cure. So thank you again. But if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement for caregivers too, what would those be?
One of the things that I've always said is to never ever give up. It's something that Jimmy Valvano said during his SB speech prior to him losing his battle against cancer, and I think every single individual facing a disease like Parkinson's or cancer or ALS or anything, Rebecca and I will never, ever give up. I am never going to leave her side. I am never going to stop fighting for her. I'm never going to stop asking questions. I'm never going to stop bothering doctors. I'm never going to stop talking to experts out there who know more than I do. I'm never going to stop watching my wife and taking notes and being her advocate every single day. And I think that the more that we can talk about honestly what we're experiencing, how we feel, we can then get the right help from a physical standpoint, which is the physicians, to the therapy standpoint, which is as much rehabilitation while you're going through this, and also in wrapping that up into the mental health umbrella, where the people stay as cognitive and as hopeful as they possibly can. Because as long as you got hope, you can still continue to put on the gloves. And yeah, you're going to get punched by Mike Tyson in the face, probably a lot more times than you want to. But like you, I don't know if I'm going to see it in my lifetime. But Rebecca, I think, goes to sleep every night with some type of serenity that I'm here for her 24/7, 365, always will be. And so the hope that people like you and I and so many thousands of others will continue to keep your mother's memory in the foreground and not forget about it, and continue to take that experience, which has more moments of sadness at the end, and turn it into something that helps people as we move forward down this rocky road.
Thank you. And just to add, I will never stop fighting for your wife and for everyone out there listening until we find a cure. So I just want to thank you. Just to wrap up, I have a little message for you and your family and everyone listening. We love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with Michael, will advocate for you. And together, I feel our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started, because even though I've been doing it for a few years, when I met you, I don't even know how. Thankfully, we did. You inspire me. You kind of re-energize the fire in my heart to keep doing this. And I just want to say how grateful I am for your time today, for your support, and we send it right back to you and your family. And I have a feeling we won't say goodbye. This has to again continue till we find a cure. And also keep strong too. Let's find a cure for cancer as well. So I just
And
want
I
to
and I think, George, that you said it best. I think the greatest gift that any caregiver, care partner, or advocate can ever hear is that you've made a difference in my life. And that's my purpose every single day. When I wake up, is how do I make the planet a better place? And if I can do no good, just don't do any harm today. And those are the rules that I live by. And I do my best to stay on the path. I do stumble and fall many times and have a lot of false starts. But I was giving all of this uh, diversity and crap in my life for a purpose, and I think the purpose is to open up the eyes and the ears and the hearts of those going through the same thing that you and I go through every single day.
Thank you again, and please support Michael. We shared the GoFundMe, but you can also find him on X, formerly Twitter. Every week they change the name, and you'll definitely not just be entertained, but you'll be inspired like I am every day. So thank you again for your time. Thanks everyone listening. Please share. This is very important. We have to get this out there to the world. If we just reach one person, then we've changed the world for the better for cancer research and Parkinson's disease, hopefully closer to a cure. So thank you. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son, George, and I never say goodbye because as Michael knows, we still have a lot of work to do, and together as a team, I think we're going to get it done. So thank you. And again, we send our love to your wife. I know she couldn't appear, but we send her a virtual hug.
She feels it. I know she does. Unlike her husband, she's not a television ham like I am. So that's okay. She feels the love. Believe me.
Thank you again and hope to see you very soon. Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure.